Are you all watching this show? I got a few thoughts about it as a social scientist. First thing I'll say is that there's some surprises on this show, so I'm going to be very careful in this video not to put any spoilers out. However, I can't vouch for the comments. So some of the substance we need to get into might be spoiler, so don't read the comments. If you're planning to watch the show, you're interested in the show, but you haven't done so yet. Here's just a little bit from the trailer of the second season, which is running now on HBO.
The last thing I would want is anyone to feel unsafe.
How could that happen?
In order to make change, it's going to take something different.
Mr. Fielder, where does your sense of altruism come from, where all of a sudden you want to save lives? You're known for pranking.
This is not sincere.
Help.
The honest truth is, I have to say, from an entertainment perspective, it's pretty good. My family loves it. My wife, my twins, who are 14 years old, my oldest daughter, who's in her mid-20s, they think it's really interesting, funny, thought-provoking, etc. And I don't disagree with any of that. It's hard, though, for me to watch it as a social scientist, and I'm going to talk about why. A few months ago, I made a previous video about the television show The Jury. Again, I don't want any spoilers, so I'm not going to say much about that, but it's a similar vein here. And the idea is related to what I invoked a number of times with respect to Stanley Milgram's work on obedience to authority, but not so much the substance, in fact, not the substance at all, but the methodology. It's really about how we allow ourselves to learn about human behavior and the responsibility we have to protect people from harm that our research might do. So you remember Stanley Milgram's work on obedience. This is where folks went to a lab and believed that they were administering electrical shocks to another person, a person that could have been them because there was a 50-50 chance draw at the beginning of the experiment. And the reason why we don't do experiments like this anymore is because it's very difficult for the people who found out something very difficult about themselves, that they were willing, with just some urging from a person in a lab coat, to continually harm another person simply because the context that they were in required them to do so, or they believed that it required them to do so. That's not good. We don't want people to have to live with that. We want people to believe, I would have been the one to stop and refuse to go on. And so we have safeguards in place that protect research participants. When I say we here, I'm talking about researchers who are working in the context of colleges and universities. We have what are called institutional review boards, IRBs for short. You may hear them referenced that way. And they are made up of people who do similar research, and they review our work. We have to have it approved. Before we can do any work that involves humans, we have to have it approved. We have a similar board for work with animals. It's a different set of folks, different set of expertise, but to ensure that we're having humane treatment of the animals, and in the case that I'm talking about here, of each other, of human beings. In fact, the Milgram experiment itself has been replicated, and never by researchers at a university or college, but ABC News tried it about 20 years ago, and around the same time, Darren Brown in Great Britain also remade it. In case you're wondering, both of those remakes found very similar results to what the original Milgram experiment found in the 1960s, which is about half of participants were willing to administer the strongest shock on the shock board, even though they were hesitant to do so because an authority figure encouraged them to. I think one of the reasons a show like The Rehearsal, or a show like What Would You Do with John Quinones on ABC are so interesting to people is because we're getting insight, and then we can think about how it relates to ourselves. But the issue is that those commercial television shows, those for-profit television shows, don't have the same safeguards. They don't have institutional review boards typically. And so what they're putting people through isn't protected in best practice, using best practices the way we do at colleges and universities. So I'll stop there because I don't want to get into details in case anybody really wants to watch the show. And I encourage you to watch it. I think it's worth watching. But I do want to hear from you. Were you uncomfortable thinking through what some of the folks in the rehearsal have been going through, have been put through? Is it ethical treatment of others for the purposes of profit? And this isn't for the purposes of research, although we can learn something from it. But this is for the purpose of profit. It's for entertainment. It's streaming on a major streaming service. It's making money, and folks are, in my opinion, potentially being harmed. I don't know what the debriefing process is like. I don't know what kind of waivers they may have signed, but absent any understanding of that, I have real concerns about the way people were treated in the filming of the rehearsal. But I'd like to hear what you think. Let me give an epilogue here because I have to leave open the possibility that because Nathan Fielder is a comedian, this is all scripted and that nobody is really being deceived at all except for the viewers in believing that somebody who's being deceived. So maybe the only harm is coming from social and behavioral scientists who are worried about this stuff. So we may find out at the end that the whole thing was scripted. And if that's the case, disregard the whole video.